Hello friends, welcome to this online refresher course that is a concerns in educational research and assessment under ARPIT 2019. I am Arvind Kumar Jha from Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar University, Lucknow, and extending my greetings to you all on behalf of National Resource Center for Education, that is also known in short as NRC for Education, Central University of South Bihar, Gaya. I am here to discuss with you on a very important and relevant topic, that is qualitative research paradigm. We will discuss this topic in two parts. In first part, we shall talk about what is a research and key items in the construction and processes of research. Then we will move over to perspective of qualitative research. And then we will start with paradigms and its constituents and why epistemology and ontology of research, and finally basic paradigms of research. The next part of the discussion will focus upon number one, positivist paradigm and its ontological and epistemological assumptions and its limitations. Then we will move over to another component, that is called interpretivist paradigm and its ontological and epistemological assumptions along with limitations. We will also, before concluding, talk about the critical theory and its ontological and epistemological assumptions and limitations. And finally, I will conclude. So therefore friends, let us start the first part of the discussion, and the objectives of the first part are that after completing the session, you will be able to understand what is a research and key items in the construction and processes of research. The second important objective that you will learn is perspectival insights of qualitative research. Third objective will be paradigms and its various constituents. The fourth objective of this discussion is the need of role of epistemology and ontology in research, and finally what are basic paradigms of research. Now firstly, let's talk about what is a research and the key items in the construction and processes of research, and then we will move over to, as I said, perspectives of qualitative research, paradigms and the constituents, and why epistemology and ontology of research and basic paradigms of research. Friends, let me start with my understanding of research. So my first question in my mind before you is, and obviously you might have thought about this, what is a research? I have given a thought to this and I have come out with my understanding, and my understanding very clearly states that research is generally perceived as the systematic process of collecting and logically analyzing information to provide sound explanations that can become knowledge. Now the question arises, why I have perceived the research, the concept of research in terms of knowledge. For me, the purpose of all research is to have better insight, and to have better insight, it is needed for all of us to make more knowledgeable, and that's why you don't need to mug up this definition. You need to understand, and for that you need to break down this definition. So first question, very simple question, what is a research? So research is a process of systematic process. Systematic process of what? It is a systematic process of collecting and logically analyzing the information. Now the third question, why do you want to collect the information and then analyze this information? So finally, the purpose is to provide sound explanations. Why sound explanations? Only then that information will become knowledge. So therefore, I would like to summarize. In other words also, the research is nothing but the disciplined nature of research allows the researcher to have the systematic, testable and objective nature of research, which permits the careful examination of the process itself as well as the results. Now the second very important, whenever we conduct research in the field of educational research, what are the key items? The key items in the process as well as in the construction of the research are, number one, the method, the methodology, theoretical perspectives, and above all, epistemology and ontology. What is a method? Methods are generally known as techniques or procedures. So whatever techniques you adopt, whatever procedure you adopt to conduct your research, that comes under methods. Now let's talk about the methodology. Methodology is a strategy. It's basically a plan or design linking the choice of methods to the desired outcomes. And for this, it is very important on the part of researcher to have a thorough understanding, in-depth understanding of the theoretical perspectives. So theoretical perspectives is basically nothing but our philosophical stance. And also it is informing the methodology and providing context for its logic and criteria. Now let's move over to epistemology and ontology. See, epistemology and ontology is nothing but our theory of knowledge and viewing of reality, underpinning our theoretical perspectives and methodology. So both the things are very important. What is a theory of knowledge that you are going to adopt to understand the reality of the phenomena which you have undertaken as a research problem? And then, but before I elaborate all these, let me talk about the perspectives of qualitative research. As far as the perspective of qualitative research is concerned, friends, I would like to state here that the qualitative research consists of various orientations and approaches, which may span across multiple intellectual and disciplinary traditions. And these result in new kinds of data gathering techniques and analysis strategy. Epistemological questions such as what is a known, what may be known, and what it was known demand an acknowledgement that there is not one legitimate way to conduct qualitative research. I underline, there is no single legitimate way to conduct qualitative research. There could be multiple ways to conduct qualitative research. Although there are differences in the various approaches, they are also bound by certain similarities when it comes to some basic features of qualitative research. Friends, an epistemological reflection of such analysis helps us identify these similarities, namely, what are the characteristics that refer to people and the characteristics referring to context. Both are important. It's not only the characteristics of the people who are the subjects of our research, but also the characteristics of the context which is important, because whenever we study any subject is contextual in nature, so context is very important. So characteristics referring to people highlight the importance of the actors that the research is focused on, together with their actions, their works, expressions and interpretations. Friends, it also focuses on the researcher who gathers the data, interprets it and produces the final report. So research is important, researcher is important, and the subjects, they are more important. So it is the researcher who interacts with the actors under the study, and it is important that the former and not excluded from the analysis. Characteristics referring to context underline the observed social situations in which the actors engage, either amongst themselves or with the researcher. Qualitative techniques embody the interpretative paradigm, the need to grasp the meaning of social actions in the context of the world from the actor's perspective. Qualitative research is particularly interested in the way in which the world is understood, experimented on, or produced by people's lives, behavior, interactions, and narratives. It also takes interest in the dynamics of social context and the actor's own account of their world. So how the actor is perceiving the world is important. In doing so, qualitative analysis inculcates in the researcher an appreciation for these worlds and perspectives. Further, qualitative research is interested in the meanings, personal narratives, and stories of the internal and experiential life of the actors, their viewpoints and practices. It also engages with people's interceptions and thoughts and examines what they might signify. Research in general and qualitative research in particular is best conducted by setting out the relationship between what a researcher thinks can be researched, that is, their ontological position, linking with it to what we can know about it, that is, their epistemological positions, and how to go about acquiring supporting data, that is, their methodological approach. The researcher's ontological position can have a lasting impact on what and how they decide to carry out their research. Moreover, ontological assumptions inform the epistemological ones, which in turn set the course of the methodology employed to collect the data. Friends, ontology is the study of the claims and assumptions that are made about the nature of social reality, claims about what exists, what it looks like, what units make it up, and how these units interact with each other. Ontology raises two most fundamental questions, and the questions are: what constitutes reality, and how can we understand existence? On the other side, epistemology examines what constitutes valid knowledge and how we can obtain it. In short, ontologists study what we mean when we say something exists, and an epistemologist studies what we mean when we say we know that something exists. I hope this point is obvious to you. The latter is what we call knowledge. So what is knowledge? Knowledge is generally perceived as the result of certain known conventions in the world of science and is usually associated with the ontological and epistemological characteristics of positivism. Nevertheless, the latter is just one among various possible means of knowledge construction. How do qualitative researchers sort out the tension between the supposed objectivity required in imbibing scientific knowledge and the subjectivity of their participants? Is it possible to access the participant a true identity in qualitative research without calling for an ontological perspective? How are the ontological and epistemological assumptions of researchers related to the quality of their research? To study something from an epistemological perspective is to ask subtle questions, including how reality can be known and understood, the relationship between the knower and what is known, the characteristics, etc. Principles and assumptions that guide the process of knowing, the achievement of the finding, and the possibility of the process being shared and repeated by others in order to assess the quality of the research and the reliability of those findings. For the epistemology of a known subject, one condition of scientific knowledge that needs to follow it is that the subject should not be considered as object but only as subject, whose ontological reality differs from what the previous epistemology, that of the known subject, assumed. For the epistemology of the known subject, the reluctance of researchers to see their subjects as objects not only reflects on their view of the ontological nature of social reality, but also claims different ontological characteristics for a human being's identity. Even though subjects cannot be isolated from the knowledge of their context, the epistemology of the known subject, the person and the situation, belongs in two different orders of knowledge, each with its codes, assumptions, ways of giving evidence, legitimacy, ontology, and therefore epistemology. This statement has a fundamental bearing on the whole research process, from determining the purpose of research to definitions of the units for analysis, from sampling decisions to selection of data analysis strategies. Finally, it raises the question, can ontology different data be compared? In other words, can ontologically different data be compared? The epistemology of the known subjects is not a finished product, nor does it aim at substituting the epistemology of the known subjects. On the contrary, the epistemology of the known subject is in the making while it is being researched by qualitative methods. It prevents the voice of the known subject from disappearing behind that of the knowing subject, that is, becoming distorted by having been translated by the codes of socially admitted ways of knowing. The epistemologies of the knowing and known subjects become complementary without excluding each other. The different paradigms within the epistemology of the knowing and known subjects have different ontological assumptions. This is the point I wanted to underline. That is, they determine the particular nature of what is to be known, so much so that they propose different methods for knowing and propose different validation criteria to assess the quality of research. In other words, philosophical assumptions and theoretical orientations influence qualitative research in such different ways that they are bound to generate a contrasting set of criteria for judging the quality and credibility of the research. Thus, the rigor of qualitative research lies in the consistency between the research objectives and the underlying paradigmatic assumptions. In qualitative research, it is the person, the human being, who is the key. Hence, epistemology of known subject should aim at bringing about an ontological perspective as far as the human being's identity is concerned. However, the question that still remains is, why is an ontological perspective of the researcher's identity crucial? The answer to this lies in the fact that the way of knowing proposed by the epistemology of the known subject is focused on identity, which is essential and existential as well as similar and different at the same time. That's why there must be a break with previous ontological positions regarding that identity, especially those relying on the epistemology of the knowing subject. It is ontological because that perspective is no longer aiming at what but who is known. Their idiosyncrasies, features, abilities, and attributes. The question of who is known comes prior to the question on how it is known. Given that a human being is at the core of qualitative research, and that who is more important than what. It is necessary to point out once more the question of who is, for the epistemology of the known subject, essentially the same but existentially different from that of the researcher. The basic principles of it lies in equality, which is the foundation of the epistemology. The path of epistemological reflection leads us in this way, first from the object to the subject, and then from the different subject to the same. And finally, friends, we come to the seminal question: why should the epistemology of the known subject be considered as the epistemological and ontological basis of qualitative research? In the first place, it is necessary to underline that since it is a people that the primary fundamental characteristics of qualitative research orbits around, the acceptance of the ontological perspective of identity enables us to grasp at the same time its two components, the essential and the existential ones. It helps us access, on the one hand, what is common and identical, thus enabling communication between the knowing and the known subjects. On the other hand, it allows us to grasp what is different and what makes for every person's uniqueness. This ontological understanding enables the avoidance of the remnants of realistic ontology, which is frequent in the epistemology of the knowing subject, even if the interpretive paradigm is assumed and qualitative research carried out. Now, friends, I'll be talking about the assumptions of qualitative research that will help us to move further in a smoother way. Qualitative researchers are concerned primarily with process. I repeat, primarily with process rather than outcomes or products. Qualitative researchers are interested in meaning, how people make a sense of their lives, experiences, and their structures of the world. The qualitative researcher is the primary instrument for data collection and analysis. Data are mediated through this human instrument rather than through inventories, questionnaires, or machines. Qualitative research involves fieldwork. The researcher physically goes to the people, setting, site, or institution to observe or record behavior in its natural setting. Qualitative research is descriptive in that the researcher is interested in process, meaning, and understanding gained through words or pictures. The process of qualitative research is inductive in that the researcher builds abstractions, concepts, hypotheses, and theories from details. Now, friends, I'll be talking about what is a paradigm. The term paradigm, first it was termed and coined by Thomas Kuhn in his book entitled as The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, which refers to an overall theoretical research framework. Paradigm refers to the progress of scientific practice based on people's philosophies and assumptions about the world and the nature of knowledge. Paradigms offer a framework comparing an accepted set of theories, methods, and ways of defining the data. According to Bogdan, Bicklin, and Gaya, paradigm is a loose collection of logically related assumptions, concepts, or propositions that this can be understood in short but in a better way through pictorial presentation. So friends, in this part of the discussion, we discussed about what is a research and key items in the construction and processes of research, perspectives of qualitative research, paradigms and its constituents, and why epistemology and ontology of research, and basic paradigms of research. This is all about this part, and I hope that you have enjoyed these sessions. Once again, we shall meet in the next part of the presentation, in which we shall discuss positivist paradigm and its ontological and epistemological assumptions and limitations. The second one would be interpretivist paradigm and its ontological and epistemological assumptions along with its limitations. Similarly, we'll also talk about critical theory and its ontological assumptions and limitations. And finally, we'll conclude. Thanks for watching this video. Namaskar.